Oh, hello there, and thank you for joining me in the last video store. My name is Alexei, and on this show we talk to cool and funny and interesting and exciting people about their favorite films. And this is a show all about cinematic discovery, and this episode is no different. This is celebrating the cinema of one of my favorite discoveries from when I was once a little kid, because we are talking to one of my favorite Aussie actors, David Wenham, on the show today. David Wenham, iconic star of Australian world cinema. We're talking Faramir, for goodness sake. Diver Dan from Sea Change. And maybe his most iconic beloved character, John Spitieri, which he played in a movie called Gettin' Square. And we're talking to him today because the sequel to that film, Spit, is out on March 6th. Now, producer M, I was so excited to talk to David Wenham.
Yeah, you love Gettin' Square, right?
I do.
You've been waxing lyrical about it. Wait, is that the phrase?
I've been waxing lyrical. I've been lyrically waxing.
Exactly.
I've been waxing everything about this. Gettin' Square, it's one of those movies, M, where it's like, I saw it quite young. It came out when I probably was like 12 years old. Mm-hmm. And I remember we got the DVD. It was an early DVD for my family.
Really?
The Toliopolis clan.
And you were allowed to watch it?
Yeah, I was allowed to watch it.
Oh my God, no wonder you're cooler than me. There is no way I would have been allowed to watch that. I was square.
Wow,
I still am.
you were square. I was learning how to be square. But, I think I always loved crime films. And this is like a great Aussie crime film that is comedy forward, like comedy first,
Very
and
Aussie.
Very, very Aussie, Aussie kind of black comedy in this like kind of gritty gangster crime way. I love gangster films. Always will. I will love them to the day that I get put down like the rat I am. That's how I hope to go. I hope to die like a rat.
You're going to get snuffed out.
Put some freaking cement bricks on me and throw me into the freaking Cooks River.
Fishes.
My dream come true. But yeah, I love Getting Square. It's so funny. Great screenplay. I quite like Jonathan Tepelitsky's films, but that was like a way into it for me. And I'd known David Wenham as Diver Dan on Sea Change, probably as Faramir at that point in time too, from Lord of the Rings. So I was already a fan of him. I'd seen a few of his films, but then seeing Getting Square, you're just like, whoa, transformative performance. Because Spitieri, the character he plays back then, is like this junkie, criminal, ne'er-do-well, but heart of gold character. And just like totally transformative performance. So funny. Iconic, huge set pieces of him in courthouses, calling the judge, Your Honor. Who's going to pay for my bus fare, Your Honor? Like all this stuff. Love that character. So always very interested in seeing, they're doing a sequel to Getting Square with David Wenham as the lead character, as Johnny Spit. It's like, how is that going to work? You see, Spit, it makes so much sense because this is a character that, while it is like a broad comedic character, there's so much pathos because you have so much sympathy for this guy because he just wants to do the best he can. And I think just adding a little bit more of that pathos, it's got quite a nice balance to it. Big laughs. I found this incredibly funny. Just like seeing him return to this character, return to this form. It's just great because he comes back 20 years later. The world of crime in Australia is different. And he, for some reason, I won't get into it too much, but he gets put into a detention center. So there's kind of like this nice thematic of him working with asylum seekers and refugees, new Australians, and teaching them how to be quote-unquote Australian the Johnny Spit way, becoming their casual English teacher to teach them how to speak Australian is very, very funny in this great fish out of water kind of comedy way.
I think it works so well when sequels come like 20 years later. I think that's such a smart way of like modernizing a film and adding a whole new element to a franchise. I think that's so smart.
Yeah.
Like, it's exciting.
And I think this one, it feels more like a sequel than like that legacy sequel. It's like, all these characters come back. No, it actually goes, it makes sense. Like, I had a great time with this. I thought it was so funny. Great crowd pleaser. If you love Getting Square, see Spits out March 6th. But we're going to talk to David Wenham. We only had a little bit of time with him, so it's not like a full episode. It's a bit of a bonus episode for you guys today. But we start in a place that is very exciting. Might be an iconic moment for this podcast. David has prestigious honor, I'll just say that. You'll hear what it is in a second, in the hallowed halls of the last video store. But we'll get into it. We'll talk about Spit. We'll talk a little bit about film. And then I've got a really good recommendation for him that he leads me up to quite beautifully. So let us get into our chat with David Wenham, aka Johnny Spitieri from Spit and Gettin' Square.
The last video store.
Well, David, thank you so much for joining me here in the last video store.
It's an absolute privilege.
And I would say it's a unique privilege because you are the first guest I've ever had on this show who I have actually served back in the day when I worked at a video store.
Oh, which video store?
I used to work at Video Easy in King's Cross.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Your family, you were regulars
That's right.
there. You used to come get a lot of stuff.
That's right. Yeah.
And I even remember, I caught up with my manager from back in the day recently, and I asked her if she remembered you coming in, and she said that once you came in and you ordered 10 copies of 300, a movie that you're in.
Did I?
Yeah. I'm assuming it would have been for gifts.
Funny,
or
she remembered that. No, just my own viewing, really. Just in case I wore out once. Oh, we've got another one now.
Bulk up
just
the
had them
collection?
non-stop.
Yeah.
No, what I do is I sign them and I put them on eBay for, hideous amounts of money.
Well, I might try and purchase some if they're still up there. I'll go for
All right.
it.
Say hello to her for me. That's right.
I will do,
She
yeah.
once told me that, and this is a badge of honor that I think, that's pretty good, that the most stolen DVD in that shop at the time was Gettin' Square.
I mean, that makes sense because there would have been a lot of Johnny Spitieri types walking around that store. They were probably our regular customers.
Yeah, completely. That's where I based, the character of Johnny on is all our friends up on Darlinghurst Road, and the fact that I've been an ambassador for Wayside up there. So yes, I've seen Johnny many times over the years in different iterations.
Yeah, on that ground floor, really. Yeah. Well, let's get into it. Let's start talking about some of your movies. We'll start with Spit, your new release film, a sequel to Gettin' Square. You're returning as Johnny Spitieri, one of the most beloved characters in Australian cinema. What was it like coming back to it? But even more so, I think when I think about this character, what I love so much is it's so transformative for you because Johnny Spitieri, obviously he doesn't look like you. He barely sounds like you at all. How did you kind of discover that voice, the Johnny Spitieri voice?
Yeah, it's funny actually. I'm sort of going back to my roots when I do Johnny Spitieri because as a young actor, what I love was I was drawn to characters that are as far removed from myself as possible. That to me was the joy, and some of the great inspirations that I have over the years are character actors on film and theatre. For me, how did I get that character? Well, as you say, I have seen so many Johnny Spitieris in my time. I lived down the road from King's Cross for nearly 30 years of my life. So I heard these people pretty much on a daily basis. And I love, I've seen them. Yeah. So when I first read the script of Gettin' Square, the rhythm of the character, Chris Nice, who wrote it as a criminal lawyer, and he had seen characters like Johnny Spitieri in court. So he knew how to write rhythmically for that character. So when I read the script for the first time, it was written perfectly in terms of the rhythm for delivery of that particular character. Then, in terms of finding his voice, because he was, on the gear at the time and whatever, and, a lot of the delivery of the vocals then is through the nose in a very sort of whiny voice. And then the physicality of these characters are just like, they're so specific. So I had a very, very, very clear sense of exactly how he should look, how he should sound, and how he should move. And when we were filming Gettin' Square, I remember one day the set was about, a 4-minute walk from where the makeup trailer was. And they said, "Do you want to lift to the set?" And I said, no, I'll walk. And in character, and I walked. As I walked by, there was a guy who looked pretty much like Johnny Spitieri who passed me, and he was carrying in his hand, as though he was taking it for a walk, a little teaspoon. And it was the most bizarre image, and I know what he was using the teaspoon for, but it was just like, oh my God, life is imitating art.
I love that you said that so much of his voice comes out of his nose, because even the physicality of the character, it feels like you're being led by your nose as well. It's very like hunched head forwards.
Yeah, he is. That's very true. Actually, he is sort of led by the nose. It's or his head is. it's not good for my posture over a period of time. But yeah, it is particularly Johnny. And the difference between Getting Square and Spit, 22 years difference and whatever, is obviously he has aged.
Yeah.
So I wanted that to be apparent as well. So he's a little bit more stooped. He's less hirsute. And I was very clear that he wanted, I wanted a piece of Devon on the back of my head.
That slice of Devon.
The slice of Devon on the back of the
Yeah.
head. Needed that.
Yeah.
And the hair should be originally not as greasy, slightly different, whatever. And the voice, I thought, should be, because he's been off the gear for 22 years, as you know, having worked in King's Cross all those years, there's a slight difference between people who are on the gear and people who have stopped it. And so the voice is slightly different as well.
How did you change that voice? Like, did you play around with it?
Yeah, I did. It's slightly less whiny, for want of a word, to articulate the difference. Yeah, and you can see, I think, an audience can see that there's a difference also in the energy of the character. It's not as completely frenetic as Johnny was in the first movie, especially when he needed a bit of a.
I don't think as well with the physicality. I have to ask you more. I guess it's a physical comedy technical question. Performing physical comedy in the most dangerous costume of all time, which is thongs and flip-flops. How can you talk me through that? Because I can't even imagine. I can't even walk upstairs with thongs on. How are you performing at such like an elite level of physical comedy in such danger?
Truthfully, I don't think about it because if I did, I probably wouldn't be able to do what Johnny does. Once I'm in character as Johnny, I just let him live and exist and do things that Johnny would do, and we see what happens. Yeah, it's literally just not thinking about it. If I actually. It's like, strangely, it's like one of the hardest things to do on film, I think, and I'd speak to other actors about it and go, if you're conscious of walking on the character just has to walk by, if you're thinking about walking, suddenly you look like an idiot, and suddenly, your arms moving the same thing. It's like, if you don't think about it, it's organic and it's natural. And when I'm in Johnny, it's like, yeah, he can let rip the 100 meters pretty quickly in thongs. There's a great little stills image that the stills photographer took on set one day where it looks as though Johnny is flying above the ground because both feet and legs are off the ground. Pretty good.
It's
good
like
image.
that photo of the horse in like the Zoe trope where you go, oh, yep. There's a moment where they're not touching the ground at all.
Absolutely, exactly the same.
Wow, Johnny's on the horse and he embodies the horse at the same time.
Yep, I love your analogy there.
I'm one of the great analogists that there's ever lived. So in this moment, I was even conscious of it. It was just happening.
Oh my God, I think there's a film there, The Great Analogist.
Did you ever
That's
bust a plug in a thong when you're running around as Johnny?
How bizarre is this? As a kid, wore thongs all the time, and it seems as they must be shit thongs back then, because literally, like every second week, you go, oh God, and then you try to stick the plug back in again, and no, it'll pop out. May I say, the thongs, I didn't bust any.
Wow.
And in Spit, you'll see that there's a swap of a pair in there, but I only used the one pair through the whole thing.
No way.
That just goes to show you the quality of rubber these days.
Wow.
Yeah.
I actually cannot believe that. I'm a bit gobsmacked to hear it.
Yeah, only one pair of thongs, but God almighty, I tell you what, I went for a few pairs of feet. My feet, for probably about 6 months after this film, they suffered.
Wow.
Because,
Are you in orthotics right now?
Yes. I didn't think you'd bring it up, but thank you.
Apologies, but I'm trying to get a stinger in here as well.
Yeah, no, yes, I got the orthotics. But seriously, the feet, because as I say, I wasn't thinking what I was doing. Jonathan is like, he shoots so much footage. He's out of the room now, so I can talk about him. He shoots so much footage. The amount of, it was probably, I would run about 1 kilometre for every 20 metres on screen. So it was unforgiving. And then a lot of the stunt work I do myself, so jumping and landing on cement, which is unforgiving. Ultimately, it starts to have wear and tear on me, little footsies.
Oh, no. Well, I'll give you a foot massage if you really need it.
Oh, you're so kind.
Of course, I'm trying. I've got to look after you.
A massage from the great analogist.
I also want to ask you, I think the thing that really struck me about this film, and it makes perfect sense, when you think about Johnny Spitieri, he's just one of the most sympathetic characters. You can't help but feel for him. And I think now putting him, giving him that promotion to the lead role in this sequel, the balance of pathos to humor, I think is quite elegant and works so nicely. Can you talk about, I guess, finding those more tender moments with Spit or exploring this character in a slightly new way?
Yeah. Somebody described this morning as the mixture of humour and heart.
Yeah.
Which I think was a really beautiful way of doing it. Yeah, look, for me, the rewarding thing about this particular movie is you get to see Johnny's backstory, so you understand who the man is, why the man is the way he is, and you get to see the humanity of the man. You get to see that, for all his faults and flaws and idiosyncrasies and eccentricities, at his heart, he is a really good man, and he is the least judgmental person you could ever wish to meet. And it doesn't matter who you are, whether you're, what colour your skin is or your job or how much money you are or whatever, he will treat you exactly the same. And I think that's what sort of does endear people to him because, yeah, he is a good man. He's a very strange everyman in a way. He's someone we would all love to be because we're all flawed, all of us. But he is a good man. And that's Chris Nyst, who wrote the script, criminal lawyer. His whole thinking is that everybody is a good person.
Yeah.
But some people along the way, things might occur to them or events might happen which changes them for whatever reason. But essentially, they are at heart a good person.
Oh, that's so beautifully put. I think one thing that I think really resonates and continues with Getting Square is we have like this big history and love and appreciation or even celebration of crime cinema here in Australia and throughout art. And through Getting Square, Spit as well now, but even The Boys, you've explored these characters that kind of live in these worlds. What do you think it is about this type of genre storytelling that really resonates with Australian audiences, especially in so many different flavours?
Ooh, that's a really interesting question that I honestly don't have an answer to. I honestly don't know. Yeah. I honestly don't know. It's just a fascination with, I don't know, it's not really the darker side, because in this film, we actually don't want to explore the darker side. We actually want to celebrate the good side.
Yeah.
It's a celebration about all that's good in humanity. It's a celebration about being Australian, and I suppose it's a portrait of mateship.
Yeah.
At its heart. Yeah, but in terms of the crime thing, I don't have an answer for that. But I've got to a point in my career and a point in my life where I actually, and especially what we're going through all around the world at the moment, I want to be attracted to the light as well. There's so much darkness around, and I think this film is very timely.
Yeah,
in the fact that it's uplifting. It's like I can't tell you how good it has been to be in an audience while this has been playing in different sessions that I've been at, and hearing the communal laughter in the sessions, and then as well the pin drop silence at moments of great poignancy that people have taken heart with, and then to see the audience come out at the end of the session, and it's as though they're sort of floating out. There was a lady in Brisbane the other night who said to me afterwards, she said, at the end of the film, I just wanted to hug the person next to me, which I thought, that's a pretty good thing to have.
Pretty good thing, a little bit weird, but I think
a little bit,
good.
But yeah.
I mean, you're in the shared audience. You're probably both feeling it. At
yeah,
that point.
It's better
Not
to
too
feel
weird.
that, I think, than turn around, scon the person next to you, which some movies drive you to.
I think so. Well, David, what I usually do on this show is we talk about some of your favorite movies, and then video store style, I'll step back into that role when we first met decades ago now, and give you a recommendation kind of based on your tastes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So is there
Well,
any...
you know my taste, though.
I know. I've looked at the file. I've got, but there's a lot of movies your kids were getting out. So
well, that's right. The big one that we should have stolen it actually was Princess Bride.
Oh,
that one,
great
I
film.
think, oh my God, we probably spent hundreds of dollars on that film. Worth it though.
Yeah.
Strangely, Princess Bride, I reckon, shares a similar thing with Getting Square. Very, very odd history is Princess Bride. as you know, bombed at the box office and only found a life subsequently. Getting Square was not a hit at the box office either. It bombed, and
that
it was
true?
it wasn't a success because
can't believe
the
that.
exhibitors
Yeah.
didn't really know what they had, and you only get one shot at it and it's gone. So it actually found its life on VHS, thanks to you, and DVD later on, and then an illegal version that was on YouTube for God knows how many years. That's how most people have seen the film.
And it'd been pretty hard to find for quite some time.
Very.
I've got my treasured DVD copy right here in the room with me now.
Oh, there you go. Look,
Yeah.
I'll sign
Don't
it,
leave it.
and you could probably get $5 online for it.
I'll do my best. It'll be hard to get it out of all the 300 copies that are up there as well, people buying those.
That's right. That's right.
Well, I want to get, any other movies, anything off the top of your head?
Okay, look, well, I can talk generally then. Is
I just need to get the data in my head and I'll give you a
all
recommendation.
right. Well, okay. Well, here we go. Recommendation. Well, look, my favourite era of filmmaking, I don't think it's just because of my age, is the 70s. 70s
Okay,
anyway.
now we're
70s,
talking,
okay,
yeah.
70s in Australia, Australian New Wave, all those great directors.
Love it.
Amazing. My favourite film is from here is Wake in Fright,
Beautiful film.
which very early 70s. And then 70s, if you could recommend me any film that I haven't seen from the 1970s, from American cinema,
Okay.
I would go there, because 70s for me, American cinema, the greatest script writers, the
Yep.
fact that the studio heads actually gave license to the directors to do what they want.
Yeah.
Essentially, 70s movies in America, they were art house films that became commercial hits.
I think I've got one for you that
here we go.
did not become a commercial hit.
Yep.
But this is kind of like in the area that we've been talking about. It's a movie from 1971 called Born to Win. Have you heard of this?
No.
This is a very, very early Robert De Niro performance. He plays a cop in this film, but the lead is George Segal.
Oh,
And
wow.
It is, I'll give you a little bit of plot synopsis.
Yeah.
It is kind of, this is how they call it, a smart mouth junkie and a former hairdresser spends his days looking for just one more fix.
Yes, I've heard of it and I've never seen it.
It's been really hard to find. There's a few copies out there now, but it is...
How am I going to get it? Do I have to find?
I'll find you a way.
All right,
I'll
okay.
sneak you away for it, for sure.
Oh, that'd be a winner. Yeah,
But
I
I
love.
think the reason I thought about this with Split is because it is like very rare you see a film like with that kind of premise that uses comedy as its outlet and a way of comedy to explore this kind of theme and to give life to a character that often came out the same year as Panic in Needle Park.
Yeah,
with
right.
Al Pacino.
Yeah, right.
And that's such like a dour film. This is like a bit more of a fun city, if you will, exploration or something like that.
I would love to see that film.
And-
It's interesting you should say that about comedy dealing with these sort of subjects and whatever. Yeah, but people forget, or I forget that Getting Square in, Spit's a junkie.
Yeah.
But we're not laughing at him.
No.
We're laughing with him. And I think that's something that the audience actually does subconsciously love about it. We're never putting these characters down. We're never punching down on them.
Yeah.
We're celebrating them for who they are. And in Spit, we're using comedy as well. The first part of the film is in a detention centre, and we've got people who are refugees playing refugees, and the thing that they love, they said, "Oh my God, at last, it's a comedy."
Yeah.
They said, it's actually humanizing us and showing people that, yes, some of us are really smart, some of us are dumb, and some of us are idiots, but we're the same as everybody else.
And it's
and
a
they
great
loved
play
it.
on that fish out of water theme. To have Johnny be a fish out of water in there, for them to be fish out of water in Australia. Something about that, it really is a great way for that character to sing. Just works so nicely.
Yeah. Chris's idea for it originally, the kernel for the idea for the film came many years ago when Chris was just a bit sort of perplexed by the hoo-ha about migration. And he said, I'm a migrant. He said, everybody here is a migrant or their products are migrants. He said, I know, maybe I'll just drop Johnny Spitieri in there and see what happens.
Yeah, beautifully put. Well, David, we've run out of time.
Oh, no.
Come back to the store anytime.
I love
still
your
got a
video
membership.
store.
Well, thank you. The store loves you. The physical entity and the embodiment, it all loves you too.
Now, how are my fines going there?
Well, we'll figure something out.
Yeah, they were pretty exorbitant at the time, I remember.
The last video store.
Well, that was David Wenham, the first person to have the honor of being someone I actually served in a video store in the trenches of King's Cross.
So cool. I love that.
I know. It was awesome, dude. Very fun to hang out with him. Great taste. Hopefully we can get him back to have a bit more of a longer chat about some of his favorite movies, some things that inspired him.
I think you charmed him as per usual.
Oh, let's hope so. I was wearing my most beautiful green shirt to meet him.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
That's it.
He's wooed by the
lovely
shirt.
green shirt, mate. But that was so much fun. Spit is in cinemas March 6th. Check out Getting Square as well. It's on. You can rent it and buy it now. It's been hard to find. Now it is there for you to get into. The movies I recommended to him is called Born to Win, a 70s New York gritty crime comedy that very few people have seen, but I'll just say this, it's on Tubi, so watch it there. And thanks for joining me. Thanks for joining David. Thanks for joining producer M.
Anytime.
What else do we need to say? Check us out, Last Video Store Batuta on Instagram. Stay tuned. We've got a great episode this week with the directors and stars of The Last Journey, Frederick and Philip. These are two super funny Swedish comedians.
Best episodes.
Oh my God, I had the best time with these guys. That's coming out later this week, so whatever, watch it on YouTube. They're so funny. Basically, they're like the Hamish and Andy of Sweden.
Yeah, I love that.
I had the best time with them.
Tell your friends. Tell your friends about the Last Video Store. If you have friends that are into film or Swedish people or crime or
into
anything.
cinema, we got heaps of great episodes. So go through the back catalogue if this was your first episode. Thank you for joining us. But also, give us your reviews. If you give us a review and tell us what your rental combo is, at the top of the show, almost every time I'll give a little recommendation for the dear listener.
Just not this time.
This time we didn't have much time. We had to keep it short. It was a bonus episode. We had to keep it short.
We got to get out of here.
We got to get out of here, dude. We're going to get kicked out of the video store.
Bang it down the door.
Some people are trying to get back in.